Joy had never felt loved in her mother's house. She was the twin who refused to join in her mother and sister's way of life. When they stole from neighbors, Joy spoke against it. When they lied to cover up their actions, Joy kept silent and walked away. For this, her mother hated her, and Joan, her twin sister, treated her like a stranger. "See her face," Joan would say, pointing and laughing. "She thinks she is better than us. Holy girl." Joy would go into her small room, sit on the floor, and cry quietly. She never wished to be born into a home where honesty was a curse. Things became worse the day she found out she was pregnant. Fred, the man she trusted, denied her and called her a liar. "That child is not mine," he said, and walked away. Joy's world crumbled. She carried the pregnancy alone, with no help, no support. Her mother reminded her every day that she had brought shame to the family. Joan insulted her at every chance. Still, Joy endured. She told herself she would live for her baby. 9 months later, she gave birth to a baby boy. She held him close and smiled through her pain. "You are my joy," she whispered to the tiny child. But peace did not last. One afternoon, the whole neighborhood was in an uproar. A neighbor's money had gone missing. People shouted and gathered in the compound. Joy's heart beat fast, but she kept quiet. She knew nothing about it. Suddenly her mother shouted, "Search Joy's bag." Joy froze. "Mama, what are you saying?" But before she could move, Joan ran into Joy's room, grabbed her small bag, and brought it outside. When they opened it, the missing money was inside. Joy's mouth went dry. Her legs shook. "No, somebody put it there. I am innocent." Her mother hissed loudly. "You have disgraced me enough. After everything we do for you, you still steal? Shameless girl." Joan folded her arms and nodded. "We warned you that one day your fake holiness would be exposed. Now see yourself." Tears poured down Joy's face. "I just gave birth. I did not take anybody's money. Mama, you know I didn't do this." But no one listened. The neighbors had already called the police. When the officers arrived, Joy knelt down and begged, "Please, I am innocent. My baby is still small. Please don't take me away." The officers exchanged looks and asked, "Who will take care of the child if we leave her?" Her mother stepped forward quickly. "I will take care of the baby. She should face her punishment." Joan nodded in agreement. Joy screamed and held her child tight. "No, you want to separate me from my baby. Please believe me." But the police dragged her to her feet. The baby was taken from her hands and given to her mother. Joy cried until her voice broke, but nobody pitied her. The neighbors whispered, some feeling sorry, others shaking their heads. The last thing Joy saw before they pushed her into the police van was her baby crying in her mother's arms. And just like that, her nightmare began. Life in prison was nothing Joy ever imagined. The cell was small and smelled of sweat and dampness. The other women barely spoke to her. At night, she cried silently, hugging herself and thinking about her baby. Her body still ached from childbirth, but there was no one to care. Every time she heard a baby cry in the distance, maybe from another prisoner visiting day, her heart broke into pieces. She wondered if her baby was hungry, if he was crying, if anyone was rocking him to sleep. Days turned into weeks. Then, one hot afternoon, a guard came to her cell and said, "You have visitors." Joy's heart leapt. She thought maybe someone had come to tell her she was free. She rushed out, her bare feet hitting the cold floor. When she got to the visitors' area, she saw them, her mother, Joan, and her baby boy, wrapped in a light cloth. For a moment, Joy forgot all her pain. "My baby," she cried, reaching out. But the officer on duty raised a hand. "No touching. Sit down." Joy sat on the bench, tears rolling down her face as she stared at her son. He looked thinner, smaller, but still beautiful. Then her mother leaned closer, her face cold and hard. She whispered, her voice like a knife, "Stop crying. When you come out, don't bother looking for this baby. We will sell him and use the money to relocate abroad. You are no longer part of this family." Joy's whole body trembled. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. Then a loud, painful cry escaped her lips. "No, please, Mama, don't do this. He is all I have." The officer shouted, quiet, and stepped closer. Joy struggled to speak, to beg. But before she could say more, Two officers grabbed her by the arms. "Time is up," one of them said. "No, please let me hold him." Joy screamed, reaching toward her baby as Joan smirked and held the child closer to her chest. Her mother stood up calmly and dusted her wrapper. "Cry as much as you like. Nobody will believe you. You will rot here, and by the time you come out, we will be far away." Joy's legs gave way, but the officers dragged her back toward the dark corridor leading to her cell. Her cries echoed through the prison walls. That night, Joy could not sleep. She lay on the cold floor, tears soaking her face. Her heart felt like it would stop at any moment. She prayed quietly, begging God to protect her child. But deep inside, fear gripped her. What if her mother truly sold her son? What if she never saw him again? Her cellmates looked at her but said nothing. They had seen women break before. But for Joy, this was more than pain. It was the slow death of her soul. That night in the cell, Joy could not stop crying. Her voice was hoarse from screaming, but her tears refused to stop. She lay curled up on the cold floor, her hands clutching her stomach as if she could still feel her baby there. "God," she whispered in the darkness, "don't let them sell my child. Don't let them take him away from me." The other women in the cell turned their faces away. Some were irritated, others were quietly pitying her. But nobody spoke. Days passed, and Joy grew weaker. She hardly ate. The food they gave her tasted like ashes in her mouth. Her breasts ached with milk, but there was no baby to feed. Sometimes she pressed her wrapper to her chest and wept until she could no longer breathe. Each time the prison gates opened, she would run to the bars, hoping someone had come for her, a lawyer, a neighbor, anyone. But no one came. Then one afternoon, while she sat alone in a corner, a new prisoner was brought into the cell, an older woman with kind eyes and a gentle face. The woman noticed Joy's swollen eyes and trembling hands. "My child," the woman said softly, sitting beside her. "Why are you crying like this?" Joy looked at her, tears spilling again. "They want to take my baby," she whispered. "My own mother," she said, "they will sell him. And I am here. I cannot do anything." The woman's heart broke as she listened. She wrapped her arms around Joy, pulling her close. "Don't give up," she said softly. "You are still alive. As long as you are alive, there is hope. Cry, but don't die. Your baby needs you." For the first time in weeks, someone spoke to Joy with kindness. She buried her face in the woman's shoulder and sobbed loudly. But that night, as she lay awake, her mother's words replayed in her mind. "We will sell him. You will never see him again." The thought of it almost drove her mad. She pounded the floor with her fists, biting her lips to stop herself from screaming and waking the others. The next morning, she went to the small prison chapel. She knelt on the rough floor, her knees scraping against the cement, and prayed until her tears soaked the ground. "God, if you are there, hear me. Please save my child. Don't let them harm him. Give me strength to see this through. I have no one but you." Her voice broke as she prayed, but in her heart, something small, something faint, lit up like a candle. It was hope. It did not erase the pain. It did not take away the fear, but it kept her breathing. And that was enough to survive one more day. Weeks later, the guard called Joy again. "Visitor," he said simply. Joy's heart jumped. She had prayed every night for a miracle, but deep inside she feared what this visit might bring. When she reached the visiting area, she saw them, her mother, Joan, and her little baby. This time, the baby looked a little bigger, his tiny fists moving as he whimpered softly. "Please," Joy begged the officer. "Let me hold him today." The officer hesitated, then nodded. Only for a few minutes. Joy's arms shook as they placed the baby in her hands. The moment his warm little body touched her chest, she broke down completely. "My son," she whispered, kissing his head again and again. "I'm so sorry. I couldn't protect you. Forgive me." Tears streamed down her face and dropped on the baby's cloth. She could not stop crying. Her mother stood nearby, arms folded, face hard as stone. Joan leaned on the wall, smiling coldly. "You better cry well," her mother said quietly, "because this is the last time you will see him. We already found someone who will buy him. You should be happy. He will have a better life than you can ever give." Joy's heart shattered. Mama, please, she cried. He is all I have. I will work. I will do anything. Just don't take him from me. But Joan laughed, her voice sharp. Save your tears. We are leaving this country soon. You will never find us. Joy's hands trembled as she held her son tighter. She reached for the small necklace on her neck, the only thing she had left from her late father. Slowly, she removed it and tied it gently around the baby's tiny neck. If I never see you again, she whispered to the child through her tears, this will remind you that your mother loved you. Don't forget me. Just then, the officer's voice cut through the room. Time is up. Joy shook her head violently. Please, just a little more time. But the officer stepped forward and gently took the baby from her arms. Joy screamed and fell to her knees as her mother collected the baby and turned to leave. Joan smiled at her one last time, her eyes cold and full of mockery. Goodbye, holy sister. Enjoy prison. Joy reached her hands toward them, tears running freely down her face, but they were already walking away. The last thing she saw was her baby's little hand waving in the air as they disappeared through the prison gate. The officer dragged Joy back to her cell. She could barely walk. Her body shook with grief, and when she reached the corner of her cell, she collapsed on the floor, weeping until her chest ached. That night, Joy lay awake staring at the ceiling, her heart empty. She had nothing left to lose, but deep in her soul she made a silent vow. If she ever came out of that place alive, she would find her child. No matter where they went, no matter how long it took, she would search. And she would not stop until she had him back. The day after the prison visit, Joy's mother woke up early and dressed in her best wrapper. Joan did the same, wearing a bright blouse and tying a scarf around her head. They were not mourning. They were preparing. By afternoon, a black car drove into the compound. A wealthy-looking couple stepped out, the woman holding a small blanket, the man carrying a black leather bag. Joy's mother smiled and greeted them warmly. You are welcome, she said, her voice soft and fake sweet. The child is inside. Joan brought out Joy's baby, wrapped in a clean cloth. The child was asleep, innocent, unaware of what was about to happen. The couple looked at him and nodded. Perfect, the man said. Then he opened the bag and pulled out an envelope. He handed it to Joy's mother. She quickly opened it and saw the thick bundles of cash. Her eyes shone. Joan peeped inside and grinned. This is enough, their mother said proudly. We can leave this country at last. The woman from the couple reached for the baby. Joy's mother hesitated for just a moment, then placed the child into her arms. The baby stirred, letting out a soft cry, but no one cared. The couple thanked them, got back into their car, and drove away with Joy's baby. When the car disappeared down the road, Joy's mother clapped her hands together and laughed loudly. Joan jumped up and down like a child who had just been given sweets. Finally, Joan shouted, No more crying, no more problems. We are free. They went into the house, spread the money on the bed, and began to count it. They counted until their fingers ached, laughing with excitement. That same week, they sold the family house, the only place Joy had ever called home. Neighbors watched in silence as buyers carried things out of the compound. Where are you going? One of them asked. To start a new life abroad, Joy's mother replied proudly. We are done with this place. By the end of the month, they packed their clothes, their money, and whatever pride they had left. Without looking back, they left the country. No one told Joy what happened. She only heard whispers from other prisoners that her family had sold the house and traveled out. Joy sat in her cell, staring at the wall, tears running down her face. Somewhere far away, her son was being raised by strangers, and she was powerless to stop it. But deep in her chest, her vow grew stronger. If she lived to leave prison, she would search the whole world for her child. And if she ever faced her mother and Joan again, they would know that the girl they despised was no longer helpless. Life inside the prison grew harder with each passing day. Joy was assigned to sweep the dusty courtyard at dawn, wash the dirty toilets, and carry buckets of water heavier than her own body. Her hands became rough and bruised. Her feet cracked from walking barefoot on the hard ground. Sometimes the food was so bad she could not eat it. On those nights, she lay on the cold floor with her stomach empty and her heart full of pain. Her baby was always on her mind. Is he hungry? She would wonder. Is he warm? Does anyone sing to him when he cries? Or do they beat him and shout at him like Mama used to do to me? These thoughts weakened her soul more than the prison labor ever could. At night, when the others were asleep, Joy would cry silently, biting the corner of her wrapper to stop her sobs from waking the cell. Tears soaked the hard ground until it looked like a little stream beside her head. Some nights, sleep came late, and when it finally came, it brought dreams that cut her heart deeper. She would see her baby standing at a distance, stretching out his hands to her. Mama, he would call softly, and she would run toward him. But just before she reached him, her mother and Joan would appear, snatch him away, and laugh as they disappeared into the dark. Joy would wake up with a loud scream, her chest pounding. The other women would shake their heads and turn away. One morning, after another night of weeping, Joy was too weak to stand. The prison matron shouted at her to get up, but her legs felt heavy as stone. I can't, she whispered. You must, the matron barked. 2 guards dragged her to the yard and forced her to work. Joy bent under the weight of the buckets, her body shaking, but she did not stop. She was no longer living for herself. She was living for her son. Every day she told herself, I will come out of here alive. I will find him. Even if it takes the rest of my life, I will find him. But at night, when the cell was quiet and the moonlight came through the small window, Joy would curl into a ball and whisper to the darkness, God, please let him be safe. Please let them love him. Please don't let him forget me. And then, with tears still wet on her face, she would cry herself to sleep. The day finally came. The prison gate creaked open, and Joy was called to the office. The warden looked at her with tired eyes and said, Your time is finished. You can go. Joy's heart pounded. For a moment, she could not move. Then slowly she stepped outside. The sun was bright and hot on her skin. The first time she had felt sunlight without bars in months. She stood still, looking around. The world felt strange. People walked freely, carrying baskets, laughing, talking. Children ran past her, playing. She felt like she had landed on another planet. Her feet were bare, her wrapper faded, her face thin. She had no home to return to. Her mother had sold it. She had no money, no friend waiting outside. She was completely alone. But worst of all, she had no baby in her arms. Joy walked slowly out of the prison compound, her heart heavy. Each step felt like carrying a mountain. When she reached the main road, she sat under a tree and wept. Where do I start? She asked herself. Where do I even begin to look for him? Memories of her last visit with her son came rushing back. She could still feel his soft skin against her chest, still see the necklace she tied around his neck. That necklace, she whispered. One day he will know it was from me. Joy stood up and began to walk. She had no plan, but she knew she could not sit still. She started by asking neighbors what had happened after she was arrested. One of the women shook her head sadly. Your mother sold the house and left. Nobody knows where they went. Joy's heart sank. Did anyone see who took my baby? She asked desperately. The woman nodded slowly. A rich couple. They came in a car. They left the same day. Since then, your mother and Joan have not been seen. Joy thanked her and walked away, her tears falling freely. That night, she slept outside under the open sky. She curled up on the cold ground and cried until she could no longer cry. But in the quiet of the night, a voice seemed to whisper in her heart, Get up, Joy. You are still alive. The story is not over. The next morning, she woke up with a new fire inside her. She washed her face at a public tap, tightened her wrapper, and said to herself, I will search for them. I don't care how long it takes. I will find my child. She had nothing, no house, no money, no family. But she had a vow. And with every step she took, the vow grew stronger. Joy arrived in the city with nothing but the clothes on her back and the strength of her heart. The noise, the smell of smoke and roasted corn, the endless rush of people, it was overwhelming. She had no family to stay with, no money for a room. For days, she slept under a bridge with other homeless women. Hunger clawed at her stomach, but the thought of her baby kept her alive. Each morning, she would rise before dawn and walk through the busy streets, asking strangers for work. Madam, please, she begged one woman at a restaurant. I can wash plates. I can sweep. Anything. But most turned her away. One afternoon, as she sat by the roadside, a middle-aged man selling fruits noticed her pale face. Sister, are you hungry? He asked. Joy nodded silently. He gave her a small bunch of bananas. Eat this. And listen. I know a woman who is looking for someone to take care of her son. You look like someone who needs work. Should I take you there? Joy's heart beat fast. Could this be her chance? She nodded quickly. Please take me. The man led her to a large, quiet compound on the edge of the city. The gate was tall, painted green, with flowers planted by the sides. Joy's bare feet hesitated at the entrance. It had been so long since she stood in front of a house that looked this peaceful. Inside, a kind-looking woman sat under a tree with a little boy playing beside her. The woman's eyes softened when she saw Joy. So you are the one he told me about, she said gently. Yes, Ma, Joy replied, bowing her head. The woman studied her for a moment, then said, I need someone patient and careful to take care of my son while I work. I have seen many people, but none looked serious. Something tells me you are different. Tears filled Joy's eyes. Patient and careful. That was exactly what her baby needed from her, but she had been denied the chance to give it. I will take care of him like he is mine, Joy said softly. The woman smiled. You can start tomorrow. I will give you a small room in the boys' quarters so you will not sleep outside again. Joy's heart swelled. She looked at the little boy, who had now come closer, holding a toy car in his hand. He looked up at her with innocent eyes, and something inside Joy broke. She knelt down and touched his cheek gently. Hello, she whispered, her voice shaking. The boy smiled shyly, and for a brief moment, Joy felt as though God had given her a reason to keep living. That night, as she lay on a borrowed mat, she whispered to the stars, God, thank you. Maybe this is the beginning of my story changing. Please, keep my own son safe until I find him. And for the first time since leaving prison, Joy slept without crying.